Blessed be, guys and ghouls. Today I'm going to be talking about the origins of goth. I know, this is a super controversial and divisive subject that many people can't agree on, especially within the goth community, but it's something I feel needs to be addressed. So many people are being exposed to disinformation about and within the goth community. I feel like the air really needs to be cleared. Quick disclaimer. Like I just mentioned, this is a really controversial subject. Some may understandably say that I am better described as someone who is darkly inclined instead of being a true goth. I can respect that opinion. However, I feel comfortable and confident calling myself a goth, and this is my platform, so I politely ask you to suck it up. Goth means different things to different people, and people get understandably miffed when you just trample all over the ideals that they have built their whole lives upon. We're all spooky kids, guys and ghouls. We're all on the same side. Let's just agree to push aside our dogmas and watch some Tim Burton together, shall we? All right, onward. Now, the word goth comes from the term Gothic, and a lot of people still use those interchangeably. The first Goths were actually a nomadic tribe of Germanic people during the Roman era. However, after that, the term Gothic was used to describe the post-medieval era that produced elaborate architecture and macabre artwork. If you've never seen Gothic artwork before, please Google it. So gorgy. This period of time is actually the foundation for a lot of the modern goth aesthetic. Then, in the 1700s, as a form of rebellion against the highly scientific mindset of the Enlightenment era, authors such as Lord Byron, Horace Walpole, Mary Shelley, and Bram Stoker penned novels that romanticized the supernatural and mysterious. These became known as Gothic novels. However, goth as we know it today is actually an offshoot of the post-punk era that started around the late 1970s and into the 1980s. Now, that's not to say that there weren't goths long before this. History is littered with people that you could say were early goths. People such as Edgar Allan Poe, John William Polidori, Theda Bara, and Jealousy Screamin' Jay Hawkins comes to mind. But I digress. This post-punk musical era included artists such as Joy Division, Susie and the Banshees, and of course, the pièce de résistance, Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus. This was then followed by bands such as Sisters of Mercy, Christian Death, Birthday Party. The list goes on and on. This also paved the way for other goth music genres such as death rock and dark wave. And that is just the tip of the obsidian iceberg. It was about this time that goth became instantly recognizable as an aesthetic. Elements include funeral inspiration. Think skulls, tombstones, all things macabre. B-movie kitsch. Elvira, anyone? Twisted humor. And of course, a grudging addiction to vampires. Over the years, these elements have been mined and marketed by pop culture. And every time, goths tend to roll our eyes, grit our teeth, and patiently wait for it all to blow over so we can hit the clearance bins. After goth hit mainstream popularity in the 1990s, it branched off again, urged on by numerous pop culture references. This gave birth to some definite not goth offspring, such as metalheads and emo. Now, some see this as the lowest point in goth history. I beg to differ. Perhaps I'm a little biased because my baby bat years fell into this era, and I am loath to admit that my first forays into gothdom were found in that help hit of mall goth, Hot Topic. But it was around this time that goth stopped meaning something very specific. Now, up until the 90s, goth was about music. It was a subgenre of music and a fashion revolving around that musical taste. However, when the 90s hit, goth could mean anything. In the early aughts, goth not only split, it exploded. Goth shrapnel peppered every subculture and genre. There's gothic rock, gothic rap, gothic bluegrass. There's gothic movies, gothic fashion, gothic decor. Anything can be categorized as goth. However, that doesn't mean everything should be categorized as goth. Now, that being said, we're seeing a bit of a revival in the goth scene, mostly spurred on by AHS Coven and the introduction of new goth, an aesthetic to which I heavily subscribe personally, even though I've been a goth for over 15 years. However, despite these pop culture religious affiliations, I feel like it's really, really important to make this clear that goth in itself has zero religious affiliations. There are goths of every religion, nationality, and ice cream flavor. In fact, before they stopped printing physical articles, Gothic Beauty magazine was doing a series of stories about goths from all over the world. I enjoyed them so much, and I would leap on my mailbox every time a new one came in, eager to see what they would have next. And then they stopped printing them. But I digress. It's important to debunk some of the statements pop culture and the media have made about goth over the years, and to those who've subscribed to it. Goth is often seen as attracting violent, mentally ill people, and being the subculture of the sick and clinically depressed. Nothing could be further from the truth. Goth does not advocate violence to others, self-harm, or untreated depression. Goth does, however, acknowledge that the world is not always a happy place. People get depressed, experience grief, or feel misunderstood. Instead of trying to ignore these truths or tamp them down, Goth brings them out into the open, finding beauty in the unexpected, often with a heaping spoonful of black humor. It's a stigma that makes many goths afraid to seek treatment when they have clinical depression, and it's a stigma that needs to stop. It's okay to acknowledge that the world can be a spooky place. Goths just decide to find beauty in the spookiness. Crystal formations grown from animal skulls, Victorian stained glass spider webs, and grave rubbings are all examples of finding beauty in the macabre. Imagine how much more beautiful and happy the world can be when you accept it exactly the way it is. I hope this sheds some light, or more appropriately, some darkness on the subjective subject that is goth. Please hit that like button, subscribe, ring that bell, leave a comment down below as to where our journey should take us next. Stay spooky. Victorian stained glass spider webs. Miss Cleo, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to film. Okay, sweetie. Didn't know this would become a cat video, did ya? Okay, mamas. Okay, kitty, little bit.